Hey guys, Dude's Corner here. Today I'm going to be teaching you method 1 of edge pairing, reduction method. First off, this next portion of the video is going to be in all 3 of these parts, so if you've already seen this, feel free to skip to that point of the video, because I'm going to be using this clip to explain all 3 of the different methods and how they work. However, I would recommend staying here if you haven't seen this before, because this is going to be very, very important information. The very first thing that is very important to learn for any form of edge pairing method is how do you build your centers. Now, for instance, reduction method is the most well-known method for when it comes to building your centers. By this point in time, when you have all 6 of your centers done, none of your edges will be built. The other method for building your centers is, of course, the Yao method. And in Yao method, when you build all 6 of your centers, you will also have your 4 cross edges done and in place. And then, of course, there's Hoya method, and there's the other method that I don't remember the name of, both of which I will not be talking about for their version of edge pairing because nobody cares about them, and they're really just not good in any way. So we're not going to be focusing on those. We're really going to be just focusing on reduction and Yao.
Now that we have covered what method you use to build your centers, let's go ahead and cover what method you should use to build your edges. Now there are 3 tutorials that I have posted, and each one is for each method. All 3 of these methods can be used to solve any cube from 4x4 to larger. And all 3 of these methods will be ultimately up to you to decide which method you should use for each cube. However, in just a moment, I will give some recommendations for which method I think you should use for each cube, because some of these methods it is not smart to solve with on certain cubes. But for now, I can highly recommend that you should learn all 3 of these methods, that way you can determine which method you would like to use for each of your cubes.
Now, what is all the different methods and how do they all work? Well, the first method is called reduction. The second is called freestyle. The third is called Yao. And as you probably can guess, the first method is really meant for whenever you use reduction. The second method is kind of freestyle, and you actually can kind of use it for both. But personally, I think it's better for the reduction people. And then the Yao method is, of course, really meant for Yao and should not be used for the reduction way of building your centers. If you can't fully keep up, you'll definitely be able to in just a minute, because I'm going to go a lot more in detail. Now, if I am talking too fast, or if this tutorial any of these tutorials get very quick, I would recommend either slowing down the video in the video settings, because I am just going to be not taking this very slowly, because this is not in any way a beginner's method. This is really meant for advanced solvers, and if you can't fully understand what's going on, then you're probably not ready for this level of cubing experience. Beginner tutorials will be down in the description. You'll be able to check those out if you are not at this level. Now, when it comes to the method number 1, I would recommend specifically 5x5, 6x6, and 7x7 for using this method only. For method 2, I would recommend using only 5x5 or 7x7 for this method. And method 3, I would only recommend 4x4 or 5x5. The reason why I recommend these, you'll be able to understand when I go later on into these tutorials, all 3 of them, and you'll clearly be able to tell why I recommend them. Now, the other stuff that I want to real quick talk about is the fact that all 3 of these methods use 5x5. So 5x5 is going to be the main cube that I will be talking about the most in all 3 of these tutorials, because it's the one that works for all 3 of these methods. The other thing that I want to real quick mention is the fact that when it comes to your last 4 edges, now this comes up for all 3 of these methods, I will not be talking about it, nor will I be talking about 3-cycle, last 2 edges, or parity. All of those need to have their own tutorials that I will post eventually, but probably not anytime soon. I already have posted last 2 edges, and it is kind of a beginner's method, but the tutorial will be down in the description if you need it. Also, for parity cases, the best way to solve parity, I will be posting a tutorial eventually on that relatively soon, so that'll be down in the description when that comes out. Okay, so we have covered so far a lot that is important, but what else is there that we should know before we just move on? Well, one of the main important things that we need to learn for all 3 of these methods is how do we flip an edge?
Now, there are many ways that you could flip an edge, and I'm sure you all have your own way of flipping an edge, and that is perfectly okay. I'm just going to be demonstrating with one simple way of flipping an edge that will not cause any problems anywhere else on the cube. So if you have your own way, that's perfectly okay. You can use it, just be careful when you use it. However, throughout all three of these tutorials, I will just be using this way for just demonstrations, but for showing you this algorithm, I'm just going to be demonstrating on this edge right here, and the algorithm is
R, U, R prime, U prime, Y rotation, L prime, U prime, L. And then, as we can see, this is flipped. This is a beginner's way of flipping an edge, but it does work, and it's very good, and it does not affect anything on the bottom layer, and that's specifically good for Yao. So I recommend using this across all three of these methods when you need them, when you need to flip an edge. Now you have selected how to solve reduction method. Reduction method is going to be actually very, very, very similar to beginners. So in beginner's method, we would find these two edges here, and we would line them up so that they are across from each other, making sure these two colors don't match. From there, we would slice, and then they would pair. Then what we would do is we would bring a different edge down, making sure we bring this one up into the top and not slicing back. This edge, then, we would bring over to here so that we would slice back. In reduction edge pairing, we would not slice back. We would leave it like this, and we would find a different edge. So for instance, this edge right here is now paired. So what we can do is we can insert it into the top, bringing in a different one, and then bring this down. And then we can keep going looking for different edges. This one and this one match. We can pair them up. This does fix our centers, but that's not what we're going for. We have this one right here, and we can bring it down into here, pairing, and we can look for, we would probably want to do it onto this side, bringing our edge in. We can then pair these, and so on. But we can take this one step further. Because we are not slicing back, what we're going to do is we're going to be pairing up the entire edge at once, so that we don't have to do it in twos, and we don't have to worry about having to deal with these pieces accidentally breaking up. So here we have the cube back to being scrambled with all the edges scrambled. We have these two here and this one here. We can go ahead and bring this one so that they're lined up, slicing to pair, and when we have this full line done, so we can go ahead and insert to the top. Now, when we do this, we can look at the other edge options. Particularly, you're going to want to look at the center ones. In my opinion, I find this to be easier. And we see that we have got this red and white one back here, and we also have this red and white edge here. This edge, judging by the color, we can determine that it needs to be on this slot and not this slot. And that means we're going to bring the left side up so that we can preserve this built edge and bring this down. And then we can just go ahead and slice to pair this one. Then all we need to do is just find the other edge. This can require a few rotations, but in the long run, it's a lot more faster than the original method the beginner's method we were originally using. So we have this edge, and this edge is flipped. So to fix this, what we can do is we can use our edge flip algorithm that I showed you earlier, which is right algorithm, or R, U, R prime, U prime, Y rotation, L prime, U, L. And when you start getting better and better with practicing this, you'll actually learn how to use less rotations. Just thought I would mention that, especially for a reduction method. So we pair it, and we're going to go ahead and look at our other center edges. We have the white and green, red and blue, red and yellow. Now, I notice if I was speed solving, I probably would notice this blue and red one first and notice that there's none here. So that means our only other option is the fact that our other blue and red edge is probably over here, and it is back here. So that means we're gonna have to do a double rotation and bring this edge down into here. So we can bring this one in. So we're gonna have to move this out of the way because this edge we can identify that needs to go here. So we're gonna do a U move, insert like this, and then we slice back. Our other edge is here, so we're gonna have to flip it by using right algorithm, turn face, partial left algorithm, which is L prime. We use L prime UL in that case, and then we compare. We can just continue going from here. It's all going to work the same. I actually noticed that this piece is going to work better with this one. Especially with speed solving, you're probably going to generally notice other pieces that compare better. So this one and these two here. And we can just keep going from there. Now, something else I want to real quick mention is the fact that you can have these two here and this edge here. And you might think we have to go through the trouble of flipping this. But there is an easy way to get this flipped. When your centers are messed up in this specific way, how they're at least matching, that the top line and the bottom line are matching, we can actually just turn this twice because this does not affect the lines here. Make sure that your colors are matching on the bottom and top before you do something like this, because otherwise you could mess up your centers. Then from here we can pair and then just continue. For some further advanced tips, when this edge here is already built and we notice we have these two here, we can just go ahead and pair, and then we might as well just like bring this edge down and then slice it to pair it to continue. But something else we can do, setting this back to where it was at, is we can actually go ahead and bring this edge into the back, because when we pair this one into here, it's also going to pair this one into here. This means we get two edges at once. The only downside to this is that fact that you have to insert two in the top, but of course there is an easy way to insert them both, and that would be by bringing the middle down, turning the front once, and bringing the middle back. That is assuming that your two edges here and here are broken pairs. If they're not, I would not recommend using that tip, what I just did, but it is very helpful when you can, of course, make use of it. Another pretty advanced tip is when you have this edge here and your other two are right here and here. Now, clearly one of these needs to be flipped, and I can tell it's the back one here. And when we bring this one over to here, we then would flip this, but instead we can actually go ahead and turn the back twice to flip it because these two lines are matching. And then from there we can pair both of them, and this saves a lot more time, and then we would just find a broken pair and then bring it down just like that. Now that's pretty much it for all you need to learn for reduction on 5x5. I'm going to quickly go over 6x6 and 7x7, but the last thing before I do that is to fix your centers, and that's pretty obvious. All you need to do after you built all of these edges here and used up all your pairs is to just do it like that. Last for centers, like I said, is a different tutorial because all three of these methods require their own tutorial that all will work the same way. So that's kind of why I'm not making a tutorial on this. You can just use beginners here. It'll work the same way. Now for bigger cubes, such as 6x6, I notice I have this edge here, this one here, and this one here. And then I also have this one down here. The easiest way, we can actually line these three up easily, because these two are already lined up. And to line this one up, we can simply bring the right side down, bring it into here, then turn this back down, and this lines all three up. We can slice to pair them, and the last one's up here, and we can just go ahead, turn the top so that we can make use of the front, bring this over to here, bring the front back, and then we can actually slice to pair this here. And then this pair finishes this edge pair. To find the next one, I would have noticed these two here. Now these two are flipped, like this one's flipped here, but these two are matching, and our other edge is here. So the best way to do this would be to actually bring this edge into this spot here or this spot here. Personally, I think this spot right here would be better. So when we bring it down, we can just insert it into there. And then we just need to flip this edge. Now, like I showed earlier of having to turn this side twice, you might think we can do this here due to the way that this just looks. But for 6x6, these two layers need to be matching and the middle have to be matching before you can do a turn like that. Otherwise, your centers will be messed up, as well as your inner centers, which is just going to entirely mess up the entire cube. So you got to make sure that the outside is matching and the inside is matching for 6x6. And then to flip this, we would have to use the algorithm I showed you before. And then we would pair. And then we would just continue from there. So as you can tell, 6x6 is going to work exactly like 5x5, but the only difference is the fact that your center edges can be broken up. So all you need to do is build your center edges, and it's going to pretty much work the same as 5x5. But even still, you don't even need to necessarily do that. So I noticed that I have these edges here. If we just pair them, and then this one here. We can bring down and then pair. So it is like very similar to 5x5, but we can take it one step further in the fact that in beginner's method, I taught you to build your center edge and then treat it like the 5x5 edges. But really for advancing in 6x6 edges, you don't even necessarily need to do that. You can just pair it instantly, not having to worry about each step. I mean, like I notice I have these two here, and we can just keep going on and on. But you pretty much get the idea. Pair, and we just go on from there. And then building your centers back actually works the same as 5x5. So yeah, 7x7, there's not too much to talk about other than the fact that there is just going to be one more piece we have to add on. But it is going to be similar to 5x5 in the fact we have the center edge, which kind of help indicate what piece we should be looking for next. 7x7 can get a little crazy, especially for look ahead and the amount of rotations you may need to do. So just a heads up on that. So I notice we have these edges here, and then we got this one here. We can go ahead and bring this one in, slicing to pair, and then we can go ahead and look for the next one, which is up here. Got our first edge done, and then we would just continue from there. I notice I would have these two here. We can pair, and then we got these two. Now this case in particular, we have these here. We actually can flip this edge doing turning this twice, because if the outer are matching, the inner are matching, and of course the center, then you can flip it. So these two need to be matching and these two need to be matching before you can do a double turn like that. And then we got these here, and we can just go on and on from there. But you pretty much get the idea of how the edge pairing works. But yeah, that's 7x7, 6x6, and 5x5. You pretty much should be able to figure out reduction on your own from there. It's pretty straightforward as a method. However, I would say if you think this is not the best method for you, you could always try looking into freestyle. But I would recommend using this method for 6x6 because freestyle on 6x6 is not that good. And if you're still waiting on freestyle to come out, it should come out maybe like next week for you. So look out for that tutorial. I would recommend watching all three. Like I said, each one is up to you how you want to learn how to solve your edges, because it's all three different methods people have different preferences on. But yeah, that is how you do reduction method on 5x5, 6x6, and 7x7. So if you found this video helpful, please remember to hit that like button down below and hit the subscribe button, as well as those bell notifications to be notified when upcoming videos are released. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them down in the comment section. I'm sure I can help you, or at least other cubers can, because reduction method can be hard to learn for some people. Other people may just be super easy, but just feel free to ask questions if you have any. But anyway, yeah, thanks guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.